Now, our particular project focuses on Ewing sarcoma. Now, this disease is the second most common bone tumor that occurs in children and young adults. We don't really, though, understand who's at risk for Ewing sarcoma. As part of the effort of this grant, what we're going to do is we will be collecting and analyzing DNA from children and families, adults and families with Ewing sarcoma, to try to understand, is there a genetic clue? Is there some hint in the DNA that will allow us to understand who went on to develop Ewing sarcoma?
We know a great deal about what we call the molecular genetics of Ewing sarcoma. Someone with a Ewing sarcoma has a specific kind of genetic translocation where two pieces of DNA come together, anneal, and bind to one another to form an aberrant or unusual transcription factor. So we have a great deal of understanding of that, and some of the investigators here at the University of Utah and Huntsman Cancer Institute and Primary Children's are lead thinkers in this field. But we really don't know why this event occurs or what's the predisposition to this event, and that's where Dr. Schiffman's going to take the lead.
Despite the aggressive nature of Ewing sarcoma, we're actually quite hopeful at Huntsman Cancer Institute and through the International Sarcoma Kindred study to really make some progress. We believe that understanding the genetic risk for sarcoma, and in this case Ewing sarcoma, is going to give us an amazing opportunity to change the outcome of this disease for children and young adults.
As exciting is actually the brain trust, the intellectual firepower, if you will, that's coming together. And that wouldn't be possible without this support, because we have physical separation, we have temporal separation because we're from all over the world. And getting us together really requires an effort where we can fund coordinators that will work together to bring our minds together to really get some answers for this disease and others.
We are a collection of oncologists, surgeons, psychologists, genetic epidemiologists, and we're all driven by the same passion, and that's to understand the genetic basis of sarcoma so we can finally do something about it. Now, my motivation for getting into sarcoma research actually involves two young men that I took care of when I was training, Jeremy and Riley. And both these young men had Ewing sarcoma. One had metastatic disease, one had localized disease. But within 3 years, they were both dead. And I've never forgotten Riley or Jeremy, and they motivate me every day to try to understand who's at risk for Ewing sarcoma and what can we do about it.
It's about every patient every time, and when I was in surgical training, I met and was fortunate to walk the path with many sarcoma patients, both children and adults. And I've seen what they've gone through. I learned early on in my training that there was a paucity of research going on. It's really an orphan group of diseases. Ewing's is one of our particular interests. But there really is an underserved, unmet need in sarcoma research to optimize cures and actually find out why people get these diseases.
Ewing sarcoma is a very interesting type of cancer and is unlike most other cancers and sarcomas that we take care of. It is really defined by this translocation that Dr. Randall was mentioning, this bringing together of two different genes. One of the things that's always fascinated me about Ewing sarcoma, but also troubled me greatly, is that when the disease is metastatic, when it has spread, the overall long-term chance of survival is less than 10%. That means when you have a child sitting in front of you with Ewing sarcoma and the disease has spread all over their body, you know that it's going to be a very long and uphill battle, and chances are they're unfortunately not going to survive. That's why we're so desperate to understand this disease. If we can figure out who's at risk, then maybe we can start focusing on prevention, or maybe it will give us some insight into where the disease came from and some new novel targeted therapies to help change those outcomes.
Much of the dogma of cancer biology is that there is a cell of origin. Breast cancer arises in breast cells, colon cancer arises in colon cells. Ewing sarcoma, while it's most commonly seen in bone, can be in soft tissues, can be anywhere in the body. And we don't honestly know what the true cell of origin is. Maybe it's not necessarily defined by a given cell. Maybe it's something that predisposes to this translocation that we've talked about. But it makes it particularly interesting because we don't know the cell of origin.
When you have patients in front of you, children, teenagers, families, and they look at you and they ask, "Doctor, why did my child develop sarcoma?" We don't have a good answer right now. But through efforts like this, creating this type of resource, hopefully one day we'll be able to answer that question and go on to maybe even prevent sarcoma in young adults.